2 of this webinar really starts to talk about how you can prepare to write a scholarship essay. And just like the previous portion, it's not where you just sit down with a piece of paper and look at the question they ask you and start writing. You really want to make it also a process to make sure that you are as successful as possible and you're able to secure as many scholarships as you can using this process. So we're going to discuss 3 parts of preparing to write. There's the brainstorming, then the categorizing, then the refining, before we even ever put pencil to paper, or more likely, even before we put one finger on the keyboard. So let's talk about brainstorming first. The writing process really is a process. I think that it intimidates a lot of people, but if they could categorize it in this way and really watch it evolve in this way, then it's not so intimidating, because you know that there is a process that you can put yourself through every time that will assure you a good, solid essay. The first part is introduction, hook, transition, thesis statement, your paragraphs, and your conclusion. But before we get here, let's really talk about what you need to do before you can begin your essay, brainstorming. So why is brainstorming important? Because it really is, in this one important process, going to give you all the information you need to write a successful scholarship essay. Usually a scholarship will, or if they're requiring an essay, will have a question that they ask you. Sometimes it might be something like this: why did you go back to school? So now, before you can start writing, you really have to think about, well, why did I go back to school? I can tell you one thing. I've never seen a paper written without an outline, as I've described before, that did better than a paper with an outline. Because you're able to categorize your thoughts, you're able to fully make your arguments, and your paper is balanced. So let's look at this question that this scholarship may have asked. Why did you go back to school? It's common in many scholarships, especially for non-traditional students. Well, there are a lot of reasons people go back to school. I encourage you to use the brainstorming process with another person. Sometimes, you might be surprised to know, your children can be the best people for you to discuss why you went back to school. They'll bring up things that you really even hadn't thought of. And they do it in a more purist point of view. They're not going to be jaded or put in those things that you're already going to put in yourself, because they're going to tell you all the best parts about you when you discuss this with them. And it will give you ideas. It will spur your creativity. It's just a great idea and a fun time to get their feedback. So over the years, several reasons have come up about why people have decided to go back to school. Going back to work after kids. Maybe your kids are grown. To provide yourself with new opportunities or get additional training. Maybe you got laid off. You want to be a good example to your children and go back to school. You need to stop living paycheck to paycheck, or you need a second income. You're trying to get a better job, or you're trying to change your career. Maybe you had a divorce. You just want to stay up with the current trends and technologies, and maybe you just want to improve your skills. Like I said, there are a lot of reasons people go back to school, but here are some of those that I most often hear when I am giving this seminar. But if you look at all of these reasons, you can kind of start to look for themes within the reasons. Some things match. For example, divorce might go with change of career. Now, why would you say that? Well, because those are sort of life changes. Those are big changes that happen. Can you see anything else that might be a change that happens? Anything that might have had, maybe you got laid off. Maybe a divorce, or you're needing to change your career. Those are big changes that might help it happen in your life. Going back to work after your kids, that's a big change. How about to get a better job? Maybe to stop living paycheck to paycheck might go with getting a better job, because that really has to do with money. Household needs a second income. That also has to do with money. So you can start seeing themes. And here I see 3 specific themes. Why did you go back to school? Well, one set of themes really revolves around money. Okay, so we would subtitle that Improve Income Opportunities. One theme really revolves around a major change that might have happened in your life. So we're going to call that major life change. And then the other one here is really revolves around improving yourself, self-improvement. And kind of goes together, improve my skills, additional training, staying current. So now you can see we have 3 categories out of all those ideas that came out there. Now down here we've got be an example for my children. That might go under self-improvement, but really you're talking about your children there. Not all of them are going to fit, and some you're going to just have to save for a rainy day. But you can see how our brainstorming really did come up with 3 specific subjects. Now, why is that important? This is your first topic you're going to discuss in your essay. This will be the second topic, and this will be topic 3. So how does that translate into the writing portion? You can see paragraph 2. You can also call that topic 1. Paragraph 3 is going to be topic 2. Paragraph 4 is going to be topic 3. Boom! We've got this portion, the major portion of our writing, kind of solved. But let's break it down further. We know now what we're going to talk about. We know the subjects we're going to discuss. Therefore, we can write a thesis statement. A thesis statement is very simple. You're going to take the question that they gave you. Why did you decide to go back to school? You're going to restate it. I decided to go back to school. Then where are you going to go? You're going to go back up here. To improve my income opportunities, comma, because I had a major life change, comma, and because I'm interested in self-improvement. Boom, those are your 3 examples. Those are the 3 points that you're going to make, and which will later become the 3 paragraphs that fill out your essay. So now you've got your 3 points, your thesis statement, which is decided by your brainstorming session. Now all you really need is a way to hook your audience. Now that has to do with some of the, that really has to do with the research that you did about the company or the organization that is providing the scholarship. What's going to interest them? And based on that, you can give them statistics, important statistics that really have to do, you have to make sure that your statistics are connected to the people that you're writing to. So if you're doing statistics on child abuse to discuss why you're going back to school, those don't necessarily connect, and maybe they're, more importantly, they're not important to the people that you're writing the essay for. Maybe a dramatic story about someone else or yourself. Maybe just asking a question, an open-ended question that you're going to discuss the answers to later on. Maybe a quote, but make sure it's a relevant person, relevant to the people who are going to be reading the story. Okay, so if you get someone like Margaret Mead, who's in anthropology, and you're writing something for chemistry, sometimes those 2 aren't really going to relate to each other. But if you could find a relevant person within chemistry and provide a quote from them, it's better. There's a better chance that your quote is going to be well received. So once you decide how you're going to hook them, how you're going to grab their attention and make them want to lead on, and you have your thesis statement, so that's sort of the first part of your introduction paragraph, the last part of your introduction paragraph, then you just have to come up with one sentence that's going to transition you in between those 2 portions. Next, you're just going to go right into the paragraphs. You're going to choose your paragraph 1. And your sentence 1 on your first paragraph will be a restatement of that portion of your thesis statement. So what was our first thesis statement? I want to go back to school to improve my ability to make money or to increase my income potential. Boom. That's your first sentence. That's your first point. And then every sentence after that, you're going to also take from here. How am I going to improve my income opportunities? Because through education I can get a better job, stop living paycheck to paycheck. Then these below the categories become the specific points within your paragraphs. This is support statement 1, support statement 2, support statement 3. Save your transition for later. Then you're going to go back and say, okay, well, what was the second category? This is my reaction to a major life change. You're going to go back here, go to point 1, or rather point 2. We're going to discuss what that category is. And each of the support statements are going to come from that brainstorming you did to support how this is a positive reaction to a major life change. And you go ahead and do that with paragraph 4. Finally, you're going to take care of your conclusion. Conclusion, the first statement is just a creative restatement of your thesis statement. Okay? All that means is you're going to say it the same way. You're just not going to say it in the same words. You're going to remind people of your point 1. You're going to remind people of your point 2, remind people of point 3, and then you're going to make an ending statement. That ending statement either needs to be another open-ended question that kind of says something like, and if I don't do this now, when else will I find the time? That's an open-ended question. No one's expecting an answer for that. That's a rhetorical question, but it gets them thinking. A forward-thinking question, something that might talk about what may or may not happen in the future. But overall, you want to leave them something to think about. Why is that important? Because they're going to look at several other essays, and you want them to keep coming back in their mind to your essay. And the best way to keep them thinking about it is to make a strong, conclusive statement at the end of your essay. So that's the whole writing process in a nutshell. And if you just if you follow this outline and follow the rules that we used for brainstorming, you're really going to be able to find that you can come up with about usually there's around 5 or 6 different types of questions that essays ask. They often ask things like, what do you hope to do with your education? Why, as an adult student learner, why are you choosing to go back to school now? What do you hope to get from it? Many of the questions are very similar, and so what happens is that you find out, you know, I could probably go within about 5 essays and apply them to most of the scholarships that require essays that I have, and just tweak them a little bit. But you're not going to write them ahead of time. You're going to write them as they come along, and then you'll find, oh, that's very similar to this one. Well, let me make these changes always based on what that organization is looking for, what's important to that organization. You might have to tweak it, but you can stay with the basis that you have written for those essays often. The last thing I want to talk to you about is, now that you have your essays written, you have collected your information about your different scholarships, always set a follow-up. Whenever you finish and you've sent off, because you're going to keep notes, you've gotten a scholarship, you have copied down all the information into your Outlook, you have sent the application and the essay off. Now you're going to give yourself a little reminder, and you can look up here, there's a flag, a red flag, and you're going to tell yourself what you need to do and a date. So you don't have to think about it anymore. You can say, okay, this one's due on January 15th. On January 16th, I'm going to remind myself to send a thank you note. Or I'm going to remind myself to call and inquire when they're going to have their answers. So just set a follow-up so you're always following up and making sure that you are staying up front in their minds, that they remember you, that your essay is dead on, and you've done all the things that you possibly can to ensure you're the one that gets the scholarship money. I thank you for your time. If you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to email me at Fischel, FISHELHD, @cw.edu, or contact the Center for Student Empowerment. Have a great day, and good luck with your scholarship hunting.